Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. How has been the day? How is the day going?
Fine, we thank God.
Yes. Welcome to today's online facilitation. I thank you for your time and for logging in on time. Thank you so much. Without wasting, I know you are preparing for your exam. Exam is next week. Yeah, so I won't take much of your time, and we just quickly do the last unit under module 3, and next week when we meet, we conclude unit 3, and then we do a question and answer interaction. Uh, so
I'm done. I'm done.
so today, what are we going to be considering? The unit we are discussing this evening is industrial legislation. Industrial legislation. How many of us are able to go through the instructional video and our course materials that was earlier posted? Guys, see, please, let's endeavor. There is no miracle. If you do not study, don't expect any miracle to happen. So I'm encouraging you, please make out time. Go through the instructional video, go through your course materials. And if you have been attending the online facilitation, there is no way that you cannot be able to answer the questions that will be asked in the exam. So I'm wishing you all the best as you prepare for your exams. So when we say industrial legislation, what do we understand by industrial legislation? Just apply legislation. What is it? Then in the context of industry or organization or company. What do we understand when you hear the word legislation? What comes to your mind when you hear the word legislation? What comes to mind? What comes to your mind first once you hear legislation? The first thing that should drop to our mind when you hear the word legislation is policy, rules, laws that is guiding what. So that's what should come to our mind when you hear the word legislation. Simply the policy or rules that has been approved either by a government or by a committee to guide working condition by the aggregate of companies or enterprises. So, and the essence is for technical productive fields. So once you hear legislation, just understand that legislation is a law. Know that it is a law that is set, a set of policy, a set of laws, a set of rules that is guiding, is approved already to work, to guide a working setting, a working condition. And these rules, it binds both not only the employers, but the employees, because the employer has their rules as well as the employee. And the main aim or the ultimate aim of this industrial legislation is for the safety of worker. It's for the safety of worker. Let's always bear that in mind, that the whole essence is for the safety of workers. So we want to look at the history behind policy industrial policy or industrial legislation. Don't forget, under Unit 1, what we looked at is historical development of occupational health itself. Now we are narrowing it down to industries. That's what we want to do now. And so when you say, okay, when you now say, how did policy or legislation happened? How did it happen? Who put it in place? Who set these rules? Who set this law? Who set this policy? Who is it guiding? We've established in the definition that is guiding the workers and the employers. So now we want to look at how it started, how this legislation began. We understand that there's an abbreviation that is ILO, and the full meaning is International Labour Organization. And what is their role? Is the oldest international body in this modern time that is connected globally with health and safety of people that are working. And this organization or this body was founded in the year 1991. Very important. In Nigeria, the public policy that effectively control occupational hazard was not enacted until 1960, when we got our independence. That was when it was enacted. And after that, they started looking at the safety and the health of workers. Then we have a law or a policy that is guiding the safety and the health of workers in the Act in Nigeria policy, which was passed into law in 1968. That was the first legislation or the first policy or the first law that guides specifically on prevention or hazard of workers. So that is the short history or the short background of industrial legislation. And we know that the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, which is known as NIOSH, was also established by the Occupational Safety and Health in 1970. And it has been part of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Yes, that is also a potent point to note. Now we want to look at the types of industrial legislation. We have three types of industrial legislation. What and what are they? What are they? Who wants to share with us the types of industrial legislation? Hello, class. Hello, class. You can raise the electronic hand. Who wants to share with us the types of industrial legislation? Okay, Chinwe. Yeah, you're welcome to share. Okay. We are not hearing you. Please unmute yourself.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
Hello, good day, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, the types of industrial legislation, we have three types of industrial legislation. That's the protective industrial legislation,
Okay.
labor relation,
Okay.
labor relation, industrial legislation, and the collective agreements. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I say we have three types
Yes,
of
you said, okay.
protective industrial legislation,
Yes,
labor relation legislation,
okay.
and the collective ag agreements between the union
The union and the employers.
employers. Yes,
Thank you very
legislation.
much. Thank you very much. Yes, those are the three types of industrial legislation that we have. Then let's look at each of these. Let's now unpack each of it. When we say protective industrial legislation, what does it entails? What does it entails when it is protective? From that word, protective.
Hello?
Okay.
Yeah, protective. This entails that it is with the hours the worker spends, maximum hours the worker spent on duty
Okay.
and
Okay.
working in the industry.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it's protecting the workers, this law is guiding and putting the employers in check so that they don't overuse an employee and pay them less. So it regulates the hours that an individual can spend, and it can be calculated for his wages or for his salary, for his penny. So you will see with this, you know the hours you check into work and you know the hours you go out. And of course, there would have been an agreement on how much is paid per hour on a job. So this law kind of protects most of the time the employees. It protects the employees, especially when the youth, the youth got a lot of energies. So they know that even if they are working extra time, they are getting paid for the extra time that they are working. So that is it. The next one we want to look at labor relations law. From that word labor, we understand that, we've been hearing labor union, labor union. Okay, let me hear your thoughts. What do you understand by labor relations legislation? Who wants to share with us? Okay. Who is willing to share his or her thoughts or idea on labor relations legislation? Okay, in order not to waste our time, this is a policy or a rule or law that regulates. It's a policy that is actually between the federal government and the states when it comes to labor relations. And this law guarantees the worker free association in union. That's why we have labor union, and that is why the ASU strike. Most of the children, most of the young ones now in Nigeria, they have been on strike for how many months now? Because ASU is a union. It's saying that for teachers, they need to have this and this, and unless the government gives to them, they are not going to work. This is a labor relations legislation where you can bargain. Okay, this is as an employer, this is what as an employer, this is what I can offer you. An employee says, okay, no, I'm okay with it. No, I'm not okay with it. If I'm not okay with it, then I'll have to stop. So, and the last point is the collective agreement that will happen between the union and the employer. Now you have a representative. You are not the one that is speaking for yourself because you have a union that is speaking on your behalf. Then they will tell you that, okay, the union is the one representing you. Then liaising with your employers on way out. If an individual or if a set of group or employees have been abused or overused, then the union speaks on your behalf. Is that clear? So the next that we want to also look at is the function now of occupational Chiwe, I saw your hand up. If you have a thought to share, you're welcome to share. If not, if it's the formal one, please, you can lower it. You can lower your hand if it's the formal one. But if you have something to share, please, you are welcome to share. Okay, why? So the function, what is the function of occupational safety and occupational safety and health? We want to look at it. One, the essence of occupational health and safety. It's simply to determine and set standard of hazardous exposures in workplaces. You want to check, is the environment, is the condition in which people are working, is it okay? So you want to check that. And if it's not okay, you want to enforce occupational health standard to be practiced in that industry. And not only that, and you want to make a follow-up by inspection. And you also want to educate. It is their role to also educate employers about occupational health and safety. And not only that, to maintain and develop a database of work that is related to injuries, illnesses, and deaths. So, and also to maintain compliance. It's very important to maintain compliance. So those are the functions that we have under occupational health and safety. Any question? Any question? Any question? Okay. So the next that we want to look at is the function of NIOSH. And what is their function? Is to conduct research and review findings. And these findings will help to make a recommendation. When you make findings, you want to look, what is it that should be done? Is it being done? Is it being carried out? If it's not, you want to make a recommendation based on your findings. That's why in research, you do data collection. When you discover, okay, there is a gap in this thing, you want to find out what is causing this gap. You do your findings, you collect data either by qualitative or quantitative. Then after you've collected your data, you want to come back and analyze it. And the reason for analyzing the data or the information that you have collected is simply to make recommendation to improve that situation. And the same thing applies in this context. So you want to identify and research into occupational health and safety hazard. So, and not only that, to educate also. You want to do health education about occupational health and safety. A lot of people are working and they are not taking their safety or their health. Either they are being negligent, or their employers are being negligent on what should be done in the environment that they are working or in the situation so as to protect them. So you need to let people know, because when you know, when you are aware, you make an informed decision. But if you are not aware of what it should be done or what you are entitled to, then anyone can play on you. So it's also important to know the purpose of legislation. So basically, what is the purpose of legislation? Why law? Why policy? Why do you pass a law into place? Tell me, why do you pass a law? Who wants to share the purpose of legislation? Why do we need policy? Why is it in law? Okay, Kalu. Grace, you're welcome to share.
Yes, but good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. The purpose of legislation and injuries that may occur during the course of discharging of duties.
You said what? Hello?
As the purpose of legislation in this occupational hello, ma.
We can hear you, but your line is breaking.
Hello, ma. Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah, you asked of the purpose.
Your line is breaking, so we hear in part.
As a one is.
Okay, I guess she's having network problem. So the purpose of legislation, one, is to reduce the number of job-related illnesses, injuries, and deaths, or any fatality rates. By doing what? How do you do that? By setting all those, performing the functions. Because when employers knows what to do and they do what they do, then the safety and the health of the employees is guaranteed. And that is the whole work of occupational health and safety, the purpose. So it has to be passed into law so that you know that this is what is guiding the standard of practice. So it's important, and there is basic obligations. When you say obligation, what is expected of who? So each employer must set up a safety and health program to do what? To manage workplace safety and health. And the essence of it is to reduce injuries, to reduce illnesses. And this must be done in a systematic way, in such a way that you want to ensure, if possible, enforce compliance, because normally, human beings do not want rules and regulation to guide them. I remember there was a time that I was working in an industry, and you cannot enter the company without your safety boots. You cannot enter the compound with an open shoe. Just like we nurses, we know that it is unethical for us to wear an open shoe to work. It is unethical. So that is very important, that occupational safety and health law, standard, it it helps to set basic obligation so that each knows what they are doing. And this basic obligation program includes what? What do they include? It includes management, leadership, and employee participation. When the rules of the company says that for those who are dealing with maybe chemicals, that when you come into production room, you wear your mask. Ensure that you wear your mask, because the management leadership can have their stipulated rules. What about employees' participation? You have to comply. Compliance is very important. So obligation or industrial legislation affect both the employers and the employees. The next obligation program is hazard identification and assessment. You want to identify what are the hazard, potential hazard in this environment, in this company. Oh, this is a potential hazard. Then you want to assess it. The next point is prevention and control. You've assessed it, you've seen that it is an essential hazard. The next thing is to prevent it from affecting the employees. Then you control it. And information and training. People have to be informed on their environment so they know where to be and where not to be. And you train people, especially when they are newly employed. You want to train them so that they know very well the environment they are working and what they are prone to, and their role as well there. And the last point of program is evaluation of program. You want to do an effective evaluation program. Industrial legislation in Nigeria. So I'll leave you, because this is more of history, I'll leave you to read that on your own during your study time, except if you have questions on this area. But I think I expatiate on it during the instructional video. So the next point I want us to look at as we round up this class is Industrial Health and Welfare Center. We know we need to know that every industry, irrespective of its size, is required to produce a contiguous unit where, and if possible, an industrial health and welfare center. Very, very important. It's very, very important. So you can't say that you are having a company and you don't have basic facility. An example of those basic facility are what? Learners, what are the sample of this basic facility that an organization or an industry should have? The restroom is one, because people are working. A restaurant, people need to eat, and a resting room. So very important. Any question? Any question? Okay. So compensation law of 1990. Employers' liability for compensation for death or incapacity in case maybe in the course of job or while you were working, you injure yourself, you have any form of disability or life was lost, there is what should be paid to the family, immediate family of that employee. Yes, and all these are there. What if you have a certain problem that is related to your work? These are the things that the employers, I mean, they do for you. The compensation in fatal cases, it means that a sum of 42 months salary will be paid. So it means that for 42 months, 42 months, that is the compensation. However, you should also not be careless, because even if an individual is getting this money, remember that your health values more than money. But if there is a permanent disability, the person gets 44 months earning. So depending on the injuries and what you sustain determines what gets paid. The breakdown is on the slide. You have your full salary for 6 months in case of compensation, in case of temporary incapacity. Then you have, depends, 6 months full salary, half month first 3 months, then quarter first 15 months. So we also have legal protection in nursing practice. Legal protection in nursing practice. When we say legal protection in nursing practice, it means laws and strategies that are put in place to protect the nurse against litigations. Yes. And we also have Good Samaritan Acts, which protect the nurse when giving help in the scene of emergency. We also have the Nurse Practice Act and Standard of Practice, which is a major legal safeguard for nurses. So, in conclusion, in this unit, we've been able to describe some of the legislation enacted to protect the health and safety of workers in occupational setting. And therefore, we understand that regulation is required or is needed to ensure implementation and enforcement in industries. So I want to say thank you for joining today's online facilitation. This is where we will leave it for today. And I want to welcome contributions and questions. Contributions and questions. Any question, any contribution? Okay. If you don't have question or contribution for me, it means we will see next week, same time and same day. That will be our last class for this semester. Thank you for those of us who share. Thank you so much. Okay, Stella. Stella, I can see your hand up. Stella, I can see your hand up. Are you still raising your hand? We are not able to hear you if you are talking to us.
Hello, ma'am.
Okay, yeah,
hello?
We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your facilitation, what you have given us this evening. But ma'am, please, my own is just to plead. Can you help us? Exam is approaching. Maybe help us with area of concentration. So It's just a plea, ma.
Okay, when we meet next week, then we'll talk about that. Because next week
Okay,
we
ma.
are
Thank
adding
you
up,
so
then
much.
we'll do question and answer.
Okay, and another thing, sorry, ma. Last 2 weeks I entered, but when you say we should send our WhatsApp numbers, before I could know it, the time was off and you went off. I couldn't send. I don't know what was asked in the assignment you gave.
Well, actually, I didn't give assignment last week. I didn't give any assignment.
No, last 2 weeks.
Last week. No. Actually, for this your set, I have not given any assignment because you were a lot. So I didn't give any assignment this semester.
Okay.
So I didn't give any assignment. All right.
Okay, ma. Okay, ma. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Yes, ma.
Bye.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, ma.
Good evening.